Cybersecurity Today is brought to you by the generous support of our sponsor, Beauceron Security. You can get their 2024 State of Cybersecurity Awareness Report at beauceronsecurity.com, and there's a link you can follow in the show notes.
The Ebury botnet continues to exploit Linux servers. Microsoft, SAP, and Apple issue security updates, and more. Welcome to Cybersecurity Today. It's Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. I'm Howard Solomon, contributing reporter on cybersecurity for TechNewsDay.com. Linux server administrators still aren't doing enough to protect their machines from being infected by the Ebury botnet. That's the conclusion from reading a report by researchers at ESET. They say the botnet of compromised Linux servers is still expanding 15 years after its creation, spreading spam, stealing login credentials, plundering cryptocurrency wallets, and copying credit card numbers. What's worrisome is that victims include internet hosting providers. As you can imagine, compromising a hosting provider can give the Ebury operators access to thousands of servers. In one experiment, researchers rented a virtual server from a compromised hosting provider and found the Ebury malware was installed on it within 7 days. ESET estimates that as of late last year, there were over 100,000 Ebury compromised servers. And how are the servers compromised? Credential stuffing, taking advantage of weak administrator passwords and then elevating their access privileges. The report has details on how to detect and defuse the rootkit Ebury installs, as well as how to cleanse infected servers. Making Linux administrators use multi-factor authentication to restrict access to servers will help block attacks. In February, law enforcement agencies took over the LockBit ransomware gang's websites. That hasn't stopped this ransomware from being distributed. A botnet called Phorpiex has started a new email campaign that for the first time distributes a variant of the LockBit ransomware. That's according to researchers at Proofpoint. The high-volume campaign started April 24th. The strain being used isn't from the developer, but likely one that was leaked last summer. The infected emails are supposedly from Jenny Green with the subject line, "Your document." The message says, "Hello, you can find your document in the attachment," and claims to be from someone or something called GSD support. The attached zip file triggers a chain that results in the download of the malware. This is a classic case of an unexpected email that employees should be warned against opening. The Jenny Green messages that are flung from the Phorpiex botnet have been seen since at least January 23, but they were distributing the Phorpiex malware. The use of a LockBit ransomware strain is new. For Patch Tuesday, Microsoft released fixes for 61 vulnerabilities. They include a patch for Windows Desktop Window Manager, which researchers at Action 1 rate a significant risk. Another fix closes a hole in SharePoint Server, and there's also a patch for Excel. SAP released 17 security updates for its products. These include 3 hot news notes and 1 high priority note. According to researchers at Omnapsis, one patch with a CVSS score of 9.8 fixes 2 critical vulnerabilities in SAP Customer Experience Commerce. Another patch with a CVSS score of 9.6 fixes a vulnerability in SAP NetWeaver Application Server ABAP. Adobe released patches for Acrobat, Acrobat Reader, Illustrator, FrameMaker, Dreamweaver, Animate, Substance 3D Painter, and Substance 3D Designer, as well as Adobe Aero. Apple released a new version of iOS that patches 16 vulnerabilities on iPhones and iPads. Patches for the Mac OS were also released. Also released this week from Apple and Google are iOS and Android updates that warn users with Bluetooth turned on that someone's tracking them with a Bluetooth detecting device. And separately, Google released emergency fixes to plug a new zero-day vulnerability in the Chrome browser. Make sure you're running the latest version. VMware has released updates for Workstation and Fusion to fix 4 critical vulnerabilities. 3 of the holes were identified during a recent Pwn2Own hacking contest. A Dutch court has sentenced a Russian man who lives in the country to just over 5 years in prison for allowing laundering money through the Tornado Cash cryptocurrency mixer. He was accused of being the developer and maintainer of the service, which anonymously exchanges cryptocurrency for cash. The prosecution alleged at least $1.2 billion taken from hacks was laundered. That included some $450 million that North Korea's Lazarus Group got from stealing cryptocurrency from the Axie Infinity online game. The accused blamed users for abusing the service. However, the court said the platform was designed to have no impediment for criminal use. In January, I reported that Mississippi's Singing River Health System was notifying over 250,000 people of a data theft that took place during a ransomware attack. This week, it updated that number to just over 895,000 people who are being notified. Wi-Fi network administrators as well as router manufacturers need to take steps to protect users against a vulnerability in the Wi-Fi protocol. That's the advice of researchers at Top 10 VPN, which discovered the hole in the IEEE 802.11 standard. Their evidence will be presented at an upcoming conference in South Korea, but it's also in a blog published this week. Briefly, the problem is the flaw can allow an attacker to trick a victim into connecting to a hacker-controlled network that spoofs the broadcast name of a legitimate wireless network. And that's because the network name, which users see when they're logging into a Wi-Fi network, doesn't always have to be authenticated. It's particularly a problem in places like universities where staff and students reuse Wi-Fi passwords. And finally, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission has warned manufacturers of cars distributed in the U.S. not to illegally collect, use, or disclose personal data that they collect from internet-connected vehicles. Biometric, telematic, geolocation, and other data can be collected from wireless vehicle systems. Selling that data to marketers or data brokers without consumer consent can be illegal, the regulator says, and it's also illegal for all American businesses. That's it for now. Links to details about news mentioned in this podcast episode are in the text version at technewsday.com. Follow Cybersecurity Today on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or add us to your flash briefing on your smart speaker. Thanks for listening. I'm Howard Solomon.